tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning, I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die, for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible. To be invincible, we'll be
Hey guys, welcome to Two Guys in Hockey Talk, Season 4, Episode 37. I am pumped. It's a great show where I got set for you today. Pavel, our cat, he likes to call himself the insider. We'll see how much of a scoop he's got for us tonight. We got back with us Jamey Baskow from Flyers Nitty Gritty, also accredited journalist now with the Flyers. We're going to talk to him in just a sec. Pavel, what do we got going and what's happening?
We are live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have a lot of news happening. We've got the Stanley Cup Final coming up. We've got some insight with Jamey about the Philadelphia Flyers and where they're going to pick in the draft, which I know you have your Revs top 15. We've got a new article up on our webpage at twoguysinhockeytalk.com, so go give us a follow. We're hoping Jamey can write for us a little bit and get some stuff up there about the Flyers, because I know he's got a lot of insight. You give him a follow on Twitter. Jamey, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me at Jamey Baskow or at Flyers Nitty. I take care of both my personal handle and the Flyers Nitty Gritty page. By the way, it's an honor to come on this show because the intro is the top in all podcasts. I'm telling you, that intro is phenomenal. I love it. It just gets the blood going. Fans, man, these are great people. Your blood is oozing right now. I know it. I'm feeling the vibe.
Well, hey, thanks for the heads up. And just a shout out right now to Penny Billionaires out of Arizona, Phoenix specifically, where the Coyotes are in limbo, guys. But Penny Billionaire, electronic hard rock band, got to check them out. They've worked with us to partner our exclusive rights to their songs. So I got to tell you, man, every week they keep saying copyright on YouTube, but we get passed by. Thank you to Penny Billionaires, as well as a shout out to JR Web Designs, who does our site for us. And I just want to mention, if you go on to the former guests, you'll have all the shows that Jamey's been on with us, as well as his website and the different information and his bio. All right, man, we're happy to have you back. You know, as we said last show, as you come on, you're ready to rip your shirt and talk Hulk Hogan. I'm thinking today you're ready to rip your shirt because, man, you're going to have a crazy offseason coming up.
Yeah, so not only am I going to rip my shirt, I'll probably rip my hair out. I'm starting. I'm starting already. You see this? I got a receding hairline, I think, going. But it is what it is. It's going to be a very busy offseason. I got my fingers ready because I know I'm going to be writing a lot. I'm trying to work on my vocal cords because I know I'm probably going to be talking a lot, shouting a lot. But, it's just going to be a very, very busy offseason. I don't think it's going to be quite as busy as the 2021-22 season, but it's going to be very busy in terms of, not only the draft and free agency and who the Flyers attract, if he's great. But, the front office is getting a makeshift. They're going to add more to the medical staff to continue to revamp that aspect that's been plaguing them. But I think the Flyers are really honing in on player development. I think that is, their overall main goal. Danny Briere is a smart man. Every GM comes in, they want to pick their own guys or women for that matter and place them in certain aspects of, where they think or they want the players to succeed. If anybody knows this organization the best, it's Danny. He's been around for a while. He's played with them. He knows every aspect of player development, and so I trust him in that realm. Keith Jones, knows the Flyers very well. A smart man, an intellect. I had a very good conversation with him for an hour at training camp this past year, and he's just a very intelligent man. Loves the sport of hockey, but knows the Flyers in and out. And he could. The good thing about Keith Jones is he could compare the Flyers to where they are now to where each team in the NHL is, because that's his job as an analyst. So he knows each and every single NHL team, or else he wouldn't be able to talk about that team. So I like that aspect of this hire in terms of Keith Jones. He could compare the Flyers. Hey, this is why they're not succeeding, as opposed to Boston. This is why they had a killer regular season. Yes, they free falled in the playoffs, which happens from time to time. But he could compare them, to the pedestal that Boston was on, or Florida. How did they get red hot? Is it because of Bobrovsky? I think that Alex Lyons saved the Florida Panthers' year this year. When Bob went down with an injury, if Alex Lyons doesn't come in and play well the last 15, 16 games there, Florida may have not even made the playoffs. So, Alex Lyons doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, for what he was able to do. He's also a former Flyer. It just seems that there's former Flyers everywhere.
So around Torts coming, I mean, a lot of people were skeptical. I think these two guys might have been a little skeptical. We thought it would be good, someone to get behind those guys. I mean, I really thought they were going to finish lower in the standings, but because of some of the great work, I think he made those guys work their off. A double dollar signs, right? Here's
the Flyers player every paycheck for sure.
So here's my thing. Tort seems to really be liking this job compared to other years and other teams. Maybe you know or don't know, or maybe you can't share. I don't know, but it seems to me like they're letting him be more involved from a leadership level, which I find very interesting, because he sure seems compelled and he has a larger say than he might have had the ear of other people in the past.
And maybe that's one reason why he stuck with the Flyers and chose the Philadelphia Flyers. Maybe they allowed him. Chuck Fletcher was also a smart man. Unfortunately, he just wasn't able to get the job done. He just had a lot of bad luck in there as well, in terms of COVID, in terms of, just different reasons, in terms of injuries. And just it seemed every trade he did or everything he tried to do to make shift to get a jump start for this roster just backfired and backpedaled. So, but he, I think, gave Torts the reins. And I don't necessarily think he was just the one calling the shots there. I think that, Bobby Clark and all were like, hey, this is what's going to happen. I think he had to get the approval of John Tortorella. And I think that John Tortorella had all the backing of the Flyers front office that it maybe have not have been maybe Chuck Fletcher's first hire, to where he was able, this is what they said, hey, we're going to give you some range. We're going to give you some say. You could choose exactly who you want on the ice. You won't get any backfire. I think that's what handcuffed AV, I would say, a little bit there. Maybe AV wasn't able to put that team on ice that he wanted to where the Flyers may have learned from the mistakes of Alain Vigneault and allowed Tortorella to choose who he wanted on the ice, who he wanted on the bench at all times. I don't think that there was any pressure behind Torts in terms of a coaching aspect. He could coach the team how he felt he should coach the team, who should be benched and why they should be benched. Not just, okay, I'm benching him because I don't like him. No, there's got to be a reason to it. And I think that goes with effective communication. I don't think he needs to communicate with his players on a regular like that. I don't think he needs to go in there and be friends. There should be separation between the players and the coach, and I think that he did that well. And I think that that's why each player primarily knew where they stood. So yeah, I think that he was able to have a good year, a happy year for him. Not happy in the sense where like losing, I'm sure, eats him, but happy as to, what, I could coach the team how I want, or have a say in maybe some of these decisions that are going to come down the pike here. So they seem to be communicating effectively with John Tortorella. And maybe they didn't communicate as well with Alain Vigneault. I think that Vigneault had more leash. He was able to hand select his team. I don't think they communicated necessarily with Alain to where now they're pulling back the reins saying, hey, I'm calling the shots, but we'll let you – we want to hear what your thoughts are.
That's fair. So I do want to shift a bit because I do have some questions about Danny Briere and some of the big upcoming decisions he has to make about the team, including something you discussed on your Twitter about Carter Hart. But before we get to that, I just want to kind of applaud and kind of get your take on Scott Laughton. He performed at the Worlds. He was an alternative captain. He won gold. And as you know, on top of him, besides some of the Calgary players who didn't have the best years, what are your thoughts on him winning gold and proving doubters wrong amongst some other players there, and what that confidence will bring to him in the coming season for the Philadelphia Flyers?
He's a player that I want around the locker room. He's a player that I want around the locker room because of his leadership abilities. Take Scott Laughton out of there. You don't know if Cam Atkinson, for one, is coming back 100% healthy, although he said he is. You have Sean Couturier, who said he's also going to come back 100% healthy. So if you were to, let's just say, like the naysayers, they want Scott Laughton gone. You know, there are some people that actually don't know why he's around. Like you said, he's underrated. He was an alternate captain for a reason, you know, for Team Canada. And that's a hell of an honor anyway in itself. Team Canada has a ton of phenomenal hockey players. And to be named as alternate captain for Team Canada, that means something. That shows that maybe some Flyers fans don't know how good he is, or we undervalue his abilities or leadership abilities. You know what I mean? That he's able to bring inside the locker room. He's a very nice person. On top of that, he's I think he's a hell of a hockey player. He does everything the coach asks. He'll freaking chop off his finger to win a game. You know what I mean? That's just the player he is. But that's a person that I want around the locker room. Because, again, you don't know these injured players that are coming back. No one knows the roster that's going to be here next year. But you have so much youth that's coming down the pike. You already have a ton of youth on this team. You need that veteran to bring everybody together, and that's what Scott Laughton does well. And I think that is why I think that he could be captain. Maybe not. John Tortorella said, no, there is going to be no captain this year, but possibly next season. Or I could see even Noah Cates being that guy too.
Wow.
So let's talk back as I reverted to your article about Carter Hart. And, you know, I know you've posted a lot about Sergei Bobrovsky being traded, now being in the final, even though everyone knew that he struggled in the last few years. And I'm talking about Bobrovsky, and only recently turned it up. And there was talks even last summer of the team trading him. So now there's rumblings about Carter Hart. Why do you believe he's one of the cornerstone pieces and leaders of the Philadelphia Flyers, and why should they hang on to him, even though he's got a bridge deal and it's short and they're going to need to resign him soon?
Well, here's the thing, right? So how long is it taking for the Flyers to get an able-bodied netminder that can stop the puck 9 times out of 10? It's taken since President Reagan was in office. You know what I mean? So, like, why? I don't understand when a team has something good, even though they may not be performing to the best of their abilities, or they've had some down years, that doesn't mean that Carter Hart sucks. That just means the team sucks. So I think he's been one of the Flyers' best players for the past 3 to 4 years, and arguably so. I think that if a person watches every single hockey game, would understand that he is one of the best Flyers on the team year in and year out. I don't understand why some people just want to let him go. But in the same token, the reason I bring up Bob a lot is not because I didn't think it was a bad trade at the time. I actually thought, that it sucked moving on from Bob. It was a shame what happened. I didn't want to move, but I understood it in the same token. The Flyers they were handcuffed in terms of Bob didn't want to be a backup. They already signed Brizgalov. They had to move Bob so Brizgalov, could be the guy. So I get it, but I don't want to make that same mistake twice. And that's where I stand on that. I mean, look, they traded Bob. Now, can Carter Hart be the next Bob if the Flyers? I don't want that to happen again. I think that when you're placed in that position, you're supposed to learn from your previous mistakes. You're supposed to learn from why did Patrick Sharp excel with the Chicago Blackhawks as opposed to with the Philadelphia Flyers? Why did Pat Maroon go on and be a hell of a freaking gritty-ass hockey player who's a damn good hockey player at that, but he couldn't do crap in Philly? These are the type of things that I hope that they would become more patient on, and they have. I think if the old Flyers front office were in with the Holmgren era, I think Morgan Frost would be on this team right now. I think he would have been moved maybe a year or two ago. I think they would have been that impatient. I don't want to see them be impatient. Just because Carter Hart's coming off a bridge deal doesn't mean he's going to command $9 to $10 million. It just means that he might command 4.5 to 5.5 million per year. And I think that that's probably what he's going to get. But I don't, in the same token, I don't understand why we keep talking about trades. The Canadian investigation is still ongoing in the World Juniors. I don't think there's a team that's going to come along and say, hey, yeah, let me trade 1 to 2 first-round picks and a player for Carter Hart, I just don't think the Flyers are going to get the value that they want for Carter Hart. When you historically look at goalie trades, there aren't many first-round picks that are moved for goaltenders and stuff. I just don't want to see the Flyers make that same Bob mistake again. And that's why I bring up Bob. It's not because I think Bob is the greatest player or greatest prospect to ever enter Philadelphia, but when you have an able-bodied, good netminder, why not stick with that person? The Flyers had a good prospect. Why didn't they hang on to Bob? And I seen the same for Sam Ersson. Why do people want to just get rid of the goalie depth? The goaltending position is the most unpredictable in the sport of hockey. Yeah. Look, the Flyers had to use 8 goaltenders just 2 to 3 years ago. Do the fans want to get put through that again? You don't know who's starting on, each night. At least now you're like, oh, okay, Carter Hart's going to start. That makes me feel good to have that guy back there that you don't have to worry about. Give him a damn defense. Look at the defense that Steve Mason had with Pronger, and Kimo Timonen and all. Imagine if Carter Hart had that D, and man, just imagine, there's been some good defensemen that have come in here, just imagine, when is Carter Hart going to get that defense,
So it's interesting, Jamey. Just kind of going back, and of course, you and I were in on a Twitter discussion with someone saying Bobrovsky, right? He's not one of the greats because he hasn't won the Stanley Cup. Let's go back to that in just a moment. We can kind of finish off that discussion here, actually, on the show. We talked a little bit about it last week, but Carter Hart. So we've had goalies on, and some of the goalies, what they'll tell you. So now Jadlyn Spooner, she played out of the University of Windsor, but one thing, she's very good at understanding the positioning of goalie. In fact, she even called out Jack Campbell for the way he places his hips and stuff. She thought it was going to be a disaster for Edmonton, believe it or not, previously. But she brought up an interesting point. She says because I look at save percentages, but when you look at a save percentage on a team that doesn't play a good defense, and so we got Carter Hart at 6 years at over 200 games, and he's still putting in a 906, which essentially is what Carolina's goalies were putting in here. Now, I know you want him at 915, but you're talking about quality chances against Hart. Like he's literally got 2-on-1s, 1-on-nothings. The guys are allowed to literally walk right in. It's just like they give there's no gap control sometimes for the defensemen when they're pressing too hard. And so, like you said, when you get to that point, how do you give up on a guy? He's 24? Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. He hasn't even entered his prime yet. He hasn't even entered his peak years yet. He's ahead of schedule. It's mind-boggling that he was able to come in this league at the age of 20 and just excel. The way he has. I mean, he's supposed to struggle. And yes, he has had some struggles, but I think that he hasn't struggled to the amount that would say, oh, okay, he might have to be sent down. No, he came up and was up for good. He was never sent back to the AHL. I think that shows on how good he is. And I think that Philadelphia has something really good with Carter Hart, that he's 24 freaking years old, and we're ready to kick the can for a 24-year-old netminder who's a very good netminder. Like putting up numbers like one on those. The defense was a little bit better this year, I think, in sort of towards his game. They still had a ton of turnovers, and I think that's what killed him. In terms, you're talking about chances. Man, there was times he was facing 40 to 50 shots a night, every single, like at least 8 or 9 nights in a row. He was facing a barrage of shots. That was one bad area this year for the Flyers. They just allowed too many shots. They blocked a ton, don't get me wrong, but they allowed too many shots. And what happens when you throw a puck on net? Anything can happen, right? That's why players have thought, hey, let me just when the play breaks down, you got a few men in front. Hey, just pop it in on the goalie. Who the heck knows? Maybe he was very good with his rebound control this year, and I think that was a little underrated. I think that's an area that I see him improving on each year was his rebound control. For the past few years, he's let up those squeakers. He makes a really good fine save, but lets it up. This year, he was, man, the puck just got stuck in his pads. He did a very good job with his rebound control. So kudos to Ken Dillabaugh for that.
They would have been bottom 3 without Carter Hart. So Ray brings up a question on our screen here. I've just pulled it up. He said he did have a question for you. He says, because we brought up Bob, if Bob Bobrovsky, meaning wins a cup and the Conn Smythe, is he a Hall of Famer?
Dude, that's a tough one. I would have to say yes. I mean, he's won, multiple Vezina, for a reason, right? So, that's what I mean. I say yes. I mean, he proved this is the pinnacle of Bob right here. If he wins the cup, I do believe he's a Hall of Famer. I think even if he doesn't win the Conn Smythe, which it's going to be a toss-up between him and Matt Tkachuk. I think Tkachuk's
I still think it's Bobrovsky over Tkachuk. I know Tkachuk is important, but just without Bobrovsky in that series versus Toronto,
but we haven't even finished the Stanley Cup final yet, man. What if Bobrovsky lays an egg now?
So
I don't mean a shutout, right?
Tune in on this and say, do you decide on the full body of work of the playoffs, or is it usually the last series? But really, I think it's the full body of work. But your thoughts, Jamey?
Yeah, I think it's. I think it's a full body. I think it's a full body, and you got to see what got you from point A to point B. And I do agree with you. Bob stood on his head in that Toronto Maple Leaf series. I think that he was able to stifle Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner and stuff. It wasn't because they had their lack of fair chances. They had some really grade A quality chances. It was just Bob was that good. I think that Bob stood on his head, and I think you're right, Pavel. I think he single-handedly won him that series, and that's the key. What Carter Hart does well, he keeps his team in it and allows his team to stay in it just long enough for the Reigns for them to get their feet going and they pop in the goal and then they start making themselves feel good again. And now they're up all of a sudden from maybe being down 2-1. Now they're up 3-2. So and that's what I saw a lot this year as well. And I think that Bob did that. He withstood the barrage and just allowed Florida to get their feet going.
And I'll let you comment on this, Jamey, because I'm looking up the stats on HockeyDB. But Carter Hart this year played 55 games. So that's quite a bit for a goalie who's a starter. We know that oftentimes you try to split it. I know like 50 to 55 for a starter, which he is. And I know with injury or breaks and stuff. But during that time, he had 2.94 goals against, which is a little higher. But the Flyers defense wasn't 100%. Like their bottom, they let in a few, penalty minutes, things like that. But he had a 907. Talk to me about how well that is for a team that's in the bottom now. And yet with the defense that they had, he was able to stop most pucks coming into the net.
I think that's I think it was a heck of an accomplishment to be over a .900 this year. You're figuring the Flyers defense is makeshifting. They're a very young defense. They had Cam York. There were people coming in and out of the lineup, daily, on the defensive side. But they stood in there for a while. Like, that's what I liked about Torts. He was able to get the D, keep it. But, like, Tony DeAngelo was so bad this year in terms of his defensive game that he just, allowed odd man rushes coming the other way. And Carter Hart was there, because he wants to jump. He was like Ghost. He was the same exact defenseman as a Ghost. He was thinking more on the offensive side as opposed to defensive side. Then you had Samheim. He didn't necessarily have his best season. He had what some would say was a down year compared to the year prior. So and then you had Rasmus Ristolainen, who got off to a bad start because he didn't play because he was hurt. When he came in eventually after his injury, he was bad, for like 5, 6, 7 games there. And then all of a sudden he put together a solid year. And then you had Ivan Provorov. That's why I think so highly of Ivan Provorov, because he's going through partners like it's water, and he just does his business. And I think that he gets a lot more hate than what he should, being he doesn't even know who he's playing with on a nightly basis. And then you had Cam York, come in December, stay up for good, and look, that pairing worked between Cam York and Ivan Provorov. But then you had the middle pairing, and so the middle pairing and the bottom pairing were an influx there. It was a young team. Then towards the tail end of the year, they bring up Igor Zamula, you bring up Ronnie Adder and stuff. You're trying to make shift to see, okay, let's see if these defensemen will work, in the coming years. So it wasn't like Carter Hart had the greatest defense, in front of him, and that's why I think so highly of him. Like, he didn't know who was in there on a nightly basis, but yet he's supposed to be the man, and you had Nick Seeler, who I thought was arguably the best defenseman for the Flyers this year, most consistent defenseman, didn't get enough talk, in my opinion. That's bad when Nick Seeler is probably your most consistent defenseman, right? I mean, he was like Slavin out there, right? I mean, just imagine Carter Hart on a Carolina team with that defense, That's where I'm getting at. Is like, give him a defense, and let's see what happens. And I'm not talking about the forward, acting as defensemen, because I think that was something that they did very well this year, was support one another better in their own zone in particular, I think. And but like, man, it's just Carter with a barrage of shots. It's for him to finish with a .907 was phenomenal. If anybody watched, go back and watch the games. That's all I can say. And I don't know. It's insane. Absolutely. That the Flyers have something good, but there are some that just say, "Hey, give them away for a bag of pucks." I don't really understand it.
Yeah, well, fans are really crazy as we go to watch, but that's why they're called fans. Because
they are
fans,
they want to win.
Yeah,
that's all. Yeah. That's all it's about. They want to win, and I feel.
Well, they're a fanatic. They're a
it.
fanatic, right? That's exactly what they are. They should be crazy because they're so passionate. Yeah. Exactly. So, by the way, if you're watching right now, this is Jamey Baskow. He works with Flyers Nitty Gritty. Some of the stuff he's talking about, he has over there. You can go check it out. Thanks to JR Web Designs, guys. You can go over to our site. Pull up, go under former guests. You can pull them up. You can catch this broadcast as well as find the links to his site at Flyers Nitty Gritty. So he's got some great stuff if you want to hear about. In fact, there is one other thing. But before I go to one question, I want to ask you about Gauthier and kind of what's happening. I know you got an article up. So Ray, he's a New Jersey boy. Ray's been a great guy. By the way, Ray, you disappeared. You disappeared after your team lost in the playoffs. I don't know where you went. You're hiding somewhere in New Jersey under the turnpikes. But, man, you should have been back to kind of face up, man. But, hey, no, it's all good. And so Ray says this. I have to be honest. I'm very surprised Torts didn't blow up on someone this year.
He didn't really blow up. He just benched a few key players.
No.
Kevin Hayes was one of them. But
no, he says his remarks. He says he's surprised he didn't blow up. In other words, he was shocked that didn't happen.
That honor was left for Paul Maurice during the Toronto, Florida game in the regular season. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so
he got there a few times. There was, and that was on the media. If some people watch some of the outbursts, following losses, it's great that he does it, and he does it for a reason. It's because he doesn't want to draw attention on his locker room. He'd rather have the attention on himself. So he tries to deter. Like if the Flyers, shit the bed, which they did a few times this season. Hey, you know what? Are you looking at me weird? Just stop. So now all the attention's on him as opposed to, hey, they just lost 6-0. Just got blown out, by the Pittsburgh Penguins. You know what I mean? So like He did a great job that way. But he did blow up. He did blow up on TK actually. And what happened was there was a shouting match, and there were some curse words involved with him and TK. This is in the beginning. This is during training camp. Before he said, "I want you to be a leader," and TK looked at him and was like, "Really? You want me to be?" Like, he was never called a leader before. He was like, "Yeah, of course I want you to be a leader. You're the one that's gonna, be leading here. You've been here for a long time, for a period of time. This team the best. I think very highly." And from then on, that's what sparked, TK. And TK is very admitting of that. If you were to ask him that very question and ask him about that first initial blow up, he was never called a leader before. And to hear that from a coach, hey, this is why I'm working you so hard. This is why I'm trying to do what I do to you. And it's not to try to make your life harder, or because I want you to not succeed. It's because I know you can succeed. And it is there. You got to dig in yourself to believe and pull it out. And that's what TK did this year. So yes, he didn't have that big blow up to everybody's talking and stuff like that. Yeah. But he did blow. Him and TK had a big shouting match with curse words.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is common. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I was gonna say. Okay, so we don't want to hold you too long. You've been gracious with your time. Last thing, let's just quickly talk about. Actually, there's two things. Let's talk about Gauthier and how impressed you have been with what he's been doing, and then what you see them doing going into free agency. So those two things, let's talk around. So let's talk about Gauthier.
Cutter's a really good prospect. He's a Flyers top prospect for a reason. I don't hone in on one single tournament. So this past tournament, I'm not surprised he did very well. That's just the player he is. He just had to get that confidence. And I think that when he played in the under 18 Worlds, during the winter, I think that he put a lot of pressure on himself because he knew all the attention was on himself. And I think that actually helped him. He's been on that stage before, but he's never been on the stage where, okay, all eyes are focused on me, sort of speak. So I'm not surprised he had a very good tournament. I'm not surprised he's kicking butt. He has one hell of a shot. What I'm impressed about him is his skating abilities. For his size to come down the ice, it really reminds me of like Jeff Carter or John LeClair coming off the wing there. And yes, I do compare him to them. I see that shot. John LeClair was able to pick. You see that tree on the wall there. He can tell you exactly which branch he was going to hit it at. That's what Cutter can do.
Wow.
That's how good he is. I see a guy like you can't teach that shot. That shot's just natural ability. And he actually talked to me about that. That he works on it, but he focuses more on skating as well because he knows that that's going to be a big aspect to his game. Wow. But he told me, I interviewed him back in March, and he told me that the Flyers are trying to develop him as a center. So I think that's why cool. Boston College has him down the middle. And it's going to be interesting to see with Logan Cooley coming back this year to see what they actually do with Cutter and who they place where. Yeah, I'm not surprised by the success that Cutter has had. I think everyone knew his arsenal, his plethora of being able to shoot from and just wanting to shoot from anywhere. The Flyers haven't had a player like that in a long time since Simone Gagner, in my opinion. To where he wants to shoot every time the puck is on his stick. That's the type of player that Cutter is. But I think what he's done well is he's getting better at his 200-foot game. You're starting to see a young man grow. I'm very impressed.
That's awesome.
Now,
all right.
In terms of the Flyers free agency, I think that the first big move is going to be trading Kevin Hayes at the draft. But I think that the Flyers aren't going to stop there. I really believe that Tony DeAngelo, if they can't move to, move Tony D, they're going to buy him out and suffer that cap hit of $1.66 million this year, $1.66 million for 2024-25. Those are the first two moves I think the Flyers make. I firmly believe that. What a defenseman has to go. I think it's going to be Tony D, and it's just he didn't fit in towards the end. On that team, you know what I mean? It's sort of like Kevin Hayes. Kevin Hayes got along with the guys in the room though, but he just didn't fit. He didn't jive, and I think that they have to trade Kevin Hayes, and I think it's going to be at the draft. I think that all the GMs are together, in one area for 2 days, for 48 hours, so like I firmly believe that Kevin Hayes is the first one to get one of the dominoes to fall. And going into free agency, I don't see it being like 2021, 22. I see it being like they're not really going to add. They'll add maybe a cheap player. But I think in Kevin Hayes' aspect, right, they'll retain salary. Well, with them retaining salary, they'll get a prospect in return. It's not going to be a grade A prospect. It's not going to be an A- prospect.
Yeah,
it might be the lower level, like a B to a B-, maybe a C prospect. Sort of like Owen Tippett. When they traded Claude Giroux, Owen Tippett wasn't a grade A prospect at that time. He was like a B at that time, B-, because of the lack of success he had at the NHL level. I think you're going maybe not get a first round, like the first rounder that Owen Tippett was. You might get maybe like a second rounder prospect, from whatever team he gets traded to. And I'm hearing a lot about Columbus. There's a lot of links there for that. So that'll be kind of interesting. But I just see some subtractions. I think that one prospect that can move is Wade Allison. I think that for whatever reason, there was something when he was hurt, and I don't know. I just think that I'm a fan of Wade. I like his game, but if I could see a prospect move, on the team, on the Flyers roster right now, it's him. Right. Now at the Phantoms level, I see Wyatt Wiley leaving. I don't see him, signing that. He's an RFA this year. I don't see him signing that contract. I think that I think he wants out of the organization. That's the vibe that I'm getting.
So Ray asks, do you think Ivan Provorov is really on the block potentially as well for moving?
Yeah, I mean, when you heard Danny Briere say that more than likely, most likely Carter Hart will be our franchise netminder, but I will listen. Absolutely, everybody's on the table. There is not one untouchable player. Do I think they move Ivan Provorov? No, I don't think they can. I don't see another defenseman on this roster that can play 27-plus minutes night in and night out. I don't see it. Travis Sanheim, again, had a regression year, from the year prior. Travis Sanheim, can play 20 to 24 minutes, but he can't play that 27 to 30, block shots, play on the power play if need be, play penalty kill if they ask him to, like Provy does. Cam York, hopefully, you want to say will get to that level, but he's not there yet. And I don't think Torts wants to go in and place a young player like Cam York in that position to where say, hey, now you're the guy. You're going to fill those shoes. Because I don't think that's the way development works in my personal opinion. I think the Flyers have been snake bit by that in the past, to where Chuck Fletcher maybe listened to some prospects like NAK. Remember that year? It was the 2020-21 season where they had some success from 2019-20. Let certain players go, most notably Tyler Pitlick. And so Chuck Fletcher was like, okay, well, we have NAK to fill Tyler Pitlick's shoes. How'd that work out? Not very well. No. So I don't think that they're going to place these young players in this position unless they know for a fact, hey, he can take that next step. Like, for instance, like Owen Tippett, it's got to be a very good increase in production. You saw a person like Owen Tippett, a player like Owen Tippett, who's never cracked a 20-goal mark. Not only did he crack 20, he cracked 25. So my order of business as well, if I'm Danny Briere, before the season starts, it's maybe not my first priority, obviously, but I would re-sign Owen Tippett before he cracks the 30-goal mark. Because once he hits that 30-goal mark, the cap goes up for him. So as opposed to signing a contract for, maybe around $4 million, he hits 30. Now you're 5+. So I think that my goal, what I would do, I'd re-sign Owen Tippett to maybe a 3-year, $12 million deal, $12.5 million. But I'd also re-sign Carter Hart as well. I'd give him some assurance going into this year. Hey, you're the guy. We trust you. We believe in you. We want you to take the next step in your game. Go do it. And I think that that's one way that they could get production, more and better production from Carter Hart. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason. It's going to be a very busy one, but I don't think you're going fans. I'm not going to lie to you. They're not going to add like Alex Democrat. They're not.
No, exactly.
So please, I just want everybody to get that out of their head that they're not going after the prime player this offseason. I know it sucks to say it again, and I know it's something that fans don't want to hear because they have to be more patient, but they're not going to really add. They will add cheap players on cheap deals. It's not going to be, that addition. They're going to subtract a lot. They're going to get rid of some long-term contracts. For instance, like I mentioned, Kevin Hayes. I look possibly they might move Travis Sanheim. I think is one of the first defensemen to move, and that's because for fans that don't know, his no movement clause doesn't kick in until July 1st. Mm-hmm. So they could trade him before the draft and not have to honor his wishes on what team he wants to go to. So I think that gives Danny Briere some leverage right now.
Wow.
Interesting. So quick final thoughts before we finish up. I wanted to know, I know that the Philly is drafting 7th. I know you really wanted to get the hockey gods to give you number 1 or at least top 3 for the Flyers. What are your thoughts on who they should draft? Should it be a center? Should it be somebody like Will Smith, not the celebrity, but the center? Or Zach Benson? Or do you really think that Matvei Michkov could potentially fall that low, given how well Leo Carlson and Fantilli played in the world in the IHF tournament?
I firmly believe that Michkov will not fall past 5, and that's not only because of my belief. You're looking at a sick pair of hands. I don't see another player prospect aside from like Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli that has the hands of Matvei Michkov. Leo Carlson would be close to that, but his puck skills are just insane. He's an insane player. But Montreal's GM has been on record as saying here about a month ago, and you guys are spaced out, so you know what I'm talking about. I will draft the best player available. So if that's the case, if Michkov is there at 5, he's going to draft Matvei Michkov. Plus, Montreal is in a better situation than the Philadelphia Flyers. They could wait 2 to 3 years until he's done his KHL contract. They don't need him right away. I think that Montreal, if you want to look at it in terms of their prospect pipeline, it might be a little tier ahead of the Flyers, in my opinion. So I think that they have a little more leeway there. In my that's just my personal opinion. I see, like, you're looking at a Cole Caulfield, obviously, but they have, others in the system. Plus, they're losing, Jonathan Drouin. There's other players that are, going to leave. They need help on the wing. Michkov helps, on the wing. But I think that the goal of Danny Briere is to draft the best player available. So Zach Benson, I think, is a player that could drop to the Flyers at 7. When I look at it, Michkov goes, say the pegging order is you got Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Leo Carlson, or Michkov. Then 5, you got Will Smith. Who do they take as 6? It could be a defenseman. It could be anybody. It could maybe Zach Benson falls. Maybe they pick Dalibor Dvorsky. There's always a European in there somewhere. Like a Swedish, a player in there somewhere, or a German somewhere within the top, like 6. And remember Moritz Seider, Detroit Red Wings went off board. Yeah. drafted Morris Cedar. Most pundits had him at anywhere from 10 to 15, as low as 20. Here they went off board and drafted him at 6. I think it's going to be something like that to where Benson falls.
Wow.
I see it. I see it. So I think that you're looking at 2 players. I think you're either looking at Dalibor Dvorsky or Zach Benson for the Flyers. I think that they should draft the best player available. And to me, if like you said, if Michkov were to fall to the Flyers, they draft Michkov, hands down. They're not where they could draft based off need in terms of, hey, we need a defenseman. Let's go off board and draft, David Reinbacher, who I'm not saying is going to be a bad player. I think he's going to be a good player, but I don't think the Flyers are afforded that luxury to where they could go off board, and select, somebody, like that, or go off board and draft Axel, Sandin Palika.
Wow.
I don't think that they have the luxury of doing that. I think our board, it's crazy when you're thinking about boards. Our board is different from their board.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. I mean, it's like their top 7 might be a little different from what we believe the top 7 is. So just because we believe that that's what the best 7 players are, may not be the best 7. But I think in this draft, it's a rare draft to where I think that you're looking at the top 8, and you could pretty much put, maybe not in stone, but those 8 players are going to be selected somewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe makeshift. But there's always that curveball. There's always that curveball. There's always that off-board selection.
Yes.
It's interesting you say about the curveball because I actually think Montreal won't take Michkov. We saw last year they kind of went right off the board. I'm a little concerned about their first-round draft pick. This doesn't make for exciting discussion and debate. I'm with you. I think if Mishkov's there, they take him. They have time to wait. They've done good with Russians in the past outside of this last year in their goalie situation, which is just unfortunate. But we're talking like 2-3 years away minimum, right? Benson, I think what people are missing about Benson is that this guy is amazing, and he's got a motor that has no off switch, which he would fit perfectly into there. Maybe not this coming year, but he could be ready in that next year. He's engaged in the defensive zone. He moves to wherever the puck is. He's intense. He's competitive. I mean, that's my pick if he's on the table and Mishkov's gone. But I can't see Mishkov's gone.
They're very familiar with that organization, the Winnipeg Ice. I do have an interview lined up with him. So we'll see.
This will be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
So, okay, guys. So you heard it. So Jamey Baskow, Flyers Nitty Gritty. He does all things with the Flyers, the Phantoms, as well as the Royals over there in the Philly area. You guys got to pull them up. You can check them on our former guests on our website at twoguyshockeytalk.com and go on there, catch their articles, follow them. How do they follow you again on Twitter?
At Jamey Baskow or at Flyers Nitty. You can find me on either. I'm on a lot. And Evan and Pavel, they probably get buzzes and stuff at weird times and stuff like that.
I love it. I love throwing the questions out there,
but I mean, you guys are really good people.
Like, give me more. If anything, I should stop texting and or liking all your articles. I'm like, stop, Jamey. I need more.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get a ton more here because I'm going to be writing a lot here in the coming weeks.
That's excellent, man. Thank you so much, Jamey.
Articles per day. No, I appreciate you all. It's great coming on your show. You guys do a great job. Pavel, man, sharp as usual, man. But
I love the Flyers. I just want them to succeed. And I know last year was kind of a down year, but and I'm not expecting a lot next year. I think like middle of the pack between 20 to maybe 18 to 25 in terms of the standings. But again, the Metro is so wide open because what could happen? Like Pittsburgh, what are the questions there? The like some of the other teams like Washington, they got a new coach, but what's going to happen there, right? And apart from Carolina and the Rangers, really it's up in the air. So
the one thing about Pittsburgh, though, they're about to hire Kyle Dubas here, and I'm going to tell you, I mean, I just see them. I see him trading everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so Key is on. She's actually part of the leadership that runs the Sports Empire Network. Guys, you can follow all our hockey content over there, as well as everything else from football, NBA, AEW, you name it, on all their podcasts. You can check them out. Key is a Philly fan to the end, so Key sends a shout out. She can't wait to see Cutter. And she came on specifically tonight. So we're going to have to get her on another time, too, to kind of talk around that, Key. Thanks so much.
We're going to have to talk. I don't know if you follow basketball, but the 76ers are looking at potentially hiring Nick Nurse from the former, Toronto Raptors. So I want to know your thoughts behind the scenes, just like what your thoughts on if you follow the Sixers and whatnot, and James Harden and that whole situation, and Ben Simmons and everything. But anyway.
That's awesome.
And the Eagles are coming up again to play. But anyways.
15-2, Bird. That's for sure. 15-2.
Yeah.
Woo! See, all I can think about, man, is Wilt Chamberlain. But anyway, okay.
What a hell of a player. Hell of a player.
All right, man. Jamie, have a great one. Looking forward to seeing what's happening in Flyer Land.
Have a good day.
Cheers. Have a great one,
Jamie.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Oh, man, that's awesome stuff. So, okay, well, you know what? He was kind of mentioning it already. Let's get right in. We only got about 8 to 10 minutes left in our show here to talk about some stuff. So he just brought it to attention. I was going to talk about it. The reports are saying he could easily pull out. I don't agree. And you just heard Jamie say it, that you're looking at Dubas in Pittsburgh. So for all those fans out there, you don't toy. Right now, if Dubas is not, I mean, he spent time with Crosby already. If he's not going to be there and he's been toying them along and they've been delaying all the other guys, that's going to look really bad on Dubas, and he can't afford that right now. But what my understanding is right now, a part of this is the autonomy and his ability outside of this, and this is my understanding, really outside of Crosby, anything could go. But he needs to get the second and third from the top three, right? Which is also Letang and Malkin. But I mean, I would look.
They signed him for a few extra years, and he's older.
Well, and they're going to probably be losing in free agency a few of the guys, and so a name that really is popular right now, picking up if he doesn't stay in New York, is Patrick Kane. Potentially on that right side because they have some guys moving out. So,
and their goaltending. Will Tristan Yardy resign, or will Casey DeSmith resign? Right, that's a big thing because goaltending has been the Achilles' heels for for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And now let me throw out a conspiracy.
Let's do it.
Ray, I know he's saying if they do hire Dubas, my guess is Sheldon Keefe isn't far behind. I don't know if that's true. I think Mike Sullivan has been really solid. And I don't know if you want to get rid of Mike Sullivan, who has been an elite goalie. Now, you want to hear a conspiracy?
Hang on. Mike Sullivan's an elite goalie?
No, Mike Sullivan's the coach. I'm talking about Ray. If they hire Dubas, my guess is Sheldon Keefe isn't far behind.
I heard you say something about an elite goalie. I was confused. Okay. Go ahead.
I was going to get to that. So elite goaltending. Imagine conspiracy theorists out there. Would Matt Murray come back for one more year? Would Dubas pull him? Sault Ste. Marie guy, former Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup champion, back to Pittsburgh for one more year. if Toronto sweetened the deal to take that contract on, that $4.5 million. Just saying out. Just throwing it out there.
Just saying it. The insiders calling it. At least as a possibility of 1 in 20.
They're going to be aggressive about Connor Hellebuck. Just watch Hellebuck be moved. I believe Connor Hellebuck is being moved this season. That's
and I think it's important. I think Connor. Now, I've heard some rumblings. So, and let's not just assume it's true. But I've heard that Connor would like to play on an American team.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you know, that's not always a bad thing. It's no different than like Edmonton just signed a player who was in the Rangers system, and everyone was freaking out today, yesterday from the trade and saying, well, he's going to be gone back to the draft. And you know what? They don't make that trade if they don't have some inside information. Yeah. He's from Alberta. He's an Alberta boy. The Alberta teams are trying to keep the Alberta boys around because they know they got family. They don't have to travel as far. It makes sense. Now, it doesn't always mean a player's going to be like that, but yeah, no, exactly.
Speaking of former GMs.
I really want Hellebuck in New Jersey. I get you, Ray. I get you, man. I get you. Okay.
So
Anyway,
speaking of former GMs, do you think at any point, quick thoughts, Ron Hextall returns as a GM in any capacity?
no. I see him as an assistant GM if he's got Ron. My understanding is Ron has a really good mind for the game, but Ron is a guy that likes to do, a rebuild. If you remember years ago, he was so ticked off at the Edmonton Oilers talking about them tanking to get first round draft picks and saying how that was so wrong. He really believes in the development in the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth rounders. If you go back in
Philly.
Yeah, and he was working on some, and some of that has turned out well for him. But the problem is you got to win, you got to bring in the money, you got to make the fans happy. And I think his style is. In fact, I was shocked that him and Burke. I like both, but I did not see them a fit in Pittsburgh. I think Fenway. They just made this decision wildly, thinking they're going to get the name. I think that if they hire Dubas, they got the right man for the job. He's learned his lesson on a few things around the corner. So here's what I'm seeing on a lot of social media stuff. What people are saying is, well, like for example, Brad Treliving signing in Toronto now. They're just like, well, look, what has he done? Like, first of all, sometimes you don't know what you're talking about if you don't know the inside information. First of all, you can't say that he blew the whole Kachuk and the Goudreau thing, because you got to remember ownership's behind it. Just like you saw presidents of hockey operation like Shanahan is behind. He wanted to get rid of a core player. We can only guess that it was going to be Marner or Nylander. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. You can kind of guess from that. However, the bottom line is when you've gone through something, he made a deal in an impossible situation. There is really nobody out there that's going to be better. Of course, they're going to take Brad Treliving at this point. But there is one thing I do want to point out. My understanding is there was negotiation. There was really only one big thing to discuss, and that was about decision making. No idea what was said, but there was discussion about what that contract would look around. And that's actually coming out of a place that actually gave heads up to us about Treliving 3 months before with the whole Sutter situation and not even wanting him to stay there, wanting to move him out, which they weren't willing to do. So I frankly, I still think Toronto's in trouble now, and I feel bad. Leaf fans, some Oiler fans will feel bad for you now, but not all.
I don't think anybody outside of Toronto area in Toronto.
I feel bad.
Will feel guilty.
So I feel bad for him, man. They've been there for the existence of the entire league, original six.
It's been tough.
And the fans need something.
Vegas has only been in the league for 6+ years, coming up on 7, and they've made the final twice. So we'll chat about that in just a sec. I do want to.
We're down to our last 2 minutes.
That's right. So I know that the Vegas Golden Knights are facing off the Florida Panthers in the final Stanley Cup. People are talking about, it's going to be boring. I don't want to watch. Honestly, hockey is hockey. I'm excited.
Absolutely.
Jack Eichel versus Matthew Tkachuk. Who has the most hateable personality? Who are you not or less of a fan of? Like, this should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be exciting. I'm wondering what Dallas does next. We're going to have some more reporting about that next episode and moving forward. But I want to know your thoughts, Evan. Do you have Vegas or do you have Florida hoisting Lord Stanley, both teams have never done it before?
I actually have Vegas actually hosting the Lord Stanley. I'm going to take them in 6 or 7 games. I think they are so darn deep. Their box of defending, literally, they don't move. They don't waste their energy moving. They just stand in the way. The goalie picks up. Aiden Hill is tracking well. He just grabs those little rebounds. They place themselves excellent. And like who has both Jack Eichel and Mark Stone are a couple of the best 200-foot players that are, and they're on fire now. They have, like, you think about it. They don't have the goalie right now, but they got the defenseman. They got their stud in Pietrangelo. They got Nicholas
He's
Haig.
got a 921 save
No,
percentage.
but he's not a stud goalie. I'm talking about building from the goal out, right? They have their stud forward. They got their superstar forwards in Stone and Eichel. Really, they're only that one bit away. And maybe this is the making of Aiden Hill now. Maybe this is his chance. And he's got to have a chance to be able to prove it. So I think, but I would never count out Tkachuk and Bobrovsky. But interesting enough, I do want to say people have talked about Barkov being, kind of not getting his due.
Yeah.
This is the time for Barkov to show he is as great a player as many people have said he was. And it's in this series right now. It can't be Tkachuk and Bennett and it's been Tkachuk, Bennett, and Aaron Ekblad, right?
Yeah.
Normally, you'd be thinking, I'm hearing everything about Ekblad, the number one overall choice, right? But hey, they do got a great goalie in line to come back. So, but it's going to be a great series, and I think people that don't watch it are making a bad mistake because they're going to miss some of the best hockey. These guys truly are playoff hockey teams. If you want to see how to build a team, build it because they're also going to be exciting. But it's going to be dirty versus dirty out there on that ice. And I'm looking forward to seeing how I feel watching a game with two teams that I don't naturally admire and seeing what it's like when one plays dirty on the other and the ref doesn't call it right. How am I going to feel emotionally in that game? I'm looking forward to it, man. Anyway, last thoughts. We got to call her a wrap.
I'm taking Florida. I think they've got the momentum. I think they're the underdog, and I think they've got it in the bag. And I think Sergei Bobrovsky and Matthew Tkachuk are the ones that hold the cup, hoist it, and bring it back to Florida once again after Tampa Bay did it twice in the last few years. So good on Florida. I'm looking forward to the series. It should be fun.
Yeah, and Zill wants to cut in. Going to be a killer series as well. So Zill's on her way back. We just went on a biking trip this last weekend. Hey, Zill, thanks again for the ride. Do a shout out. It was a fabulous time. So I totally agree. And she brought up a good point. Hill will be a UFA, but my understanding is they're already technically they can't do it yet, but it will be taken care of.
It's like the Robin
He's going to get paid.
Situation. The worst
exactly. Exactly. Take it or leave it. Hey, however you see it. So, guys, it's been a rootin' tootin' great ring-a ding-dong dandy. But, again, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice and keep your head up. Stay safe.
Cheers, guys.
I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning, I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is